This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is still going strong, and LifeLock is here with a message about phishing, the scam cybercriminals use to trick victims into allowing access to their devices so they can steal their personal info. Being aware of phishing scams is one way to help protect yourself. For comprehensive identity theft protection, there's LifeLock. Start protecting your identity today with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast.
Today on CityCast Boise, we're heading into the weekend with a look into why the Ada County Jail failed their inspection and the rough conditions of jails throughout the state. And we have some thoughts about Idaho Power accidentally starting the Valley Fire. Plus, we're discussing some of the best Taste of Boise deals starting this weekend. It's Friday, October 18th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Happy Friday, everyone. Joining me today is our executive producer, Frankie Barnhill. So good to see you again, Frankie.
Yeah, 2 Fridays in a row. It's fun. It's fun. Let's do more.
I know, exactly. Yes, yeah, let's keep it up. We've got a good streak.
The news keeps coming. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to jump right into it. It turns out, I know people will be surprised by this, but being one of the least regulated states in the country has a lot of downsides, surprisingly. One of them being the conditions of our jails and prisons. Did you get a chance to read about this?
Yeah, this was a fabulous piece from Investigate West, and specifically looking at county jails, not prisons, which the distinction is important because they're governed by very different groups. State prisons are governed by the state Department of Corrections versus county jails are run by the counties. They're run by the sheriff's office, the folks in the county, not by the state agency. And the short of the long sounds like conditions are rough in county jails around the state. Definitely in North Idaho, there were a bunch of ones that were highlighted in this report, but also some in Southern Idaho too, and even the Ada County Jail came up in a database around some inspections that didn't go so well for these jails.
Yeah. It was really interesting that Ada County failed their inspection due to overcrowing this past year.
This year, right now.
Yeah, so this is recently. This isn't old news.
And the inspections, this is based off of reports from the Idaho Sheriff's Association, which I didn't realize this until this great piece from Investigate West. That group, which is a nonprofit, it's not paid by the citizens of a particular county or the residents, the taxpayers in the county. They are the ones who are doing these inspections and then gathering these reports. But it's not like there's a lot of oversight around, well, certainly even how the reports are conducted, but also then like what is done once a jail fails, what happens? Seems like there's very little consequence and very little change that happens, even when there's patterns of failed inspections year after year. As in, like Benewah County had a lot of violations like that were like consecutive. So it's not like a jail fails once and then doesn't fail again, like fixes the problems. It's like, no, this is continuing. And it's leading to, definitely a lot of concerns on the part of folks who have family members who've been in jail or, understaffing, overcrowding were two of the main complaints that I saw. What else kind of popped out to you with this?
Well, I thought it was really interesting. I guess I didn't know a lot of the history behind jail standards, but Idaho's jail standards were developed in the 1970s after the civil rights era because there was more mass incarceration and disproportionate incarceration of people of color. And so these jail standards were developed as a way to deflect liability for the jail system away from the jail itself or sheriffs. Because lawsuits were spiking nationwide saying, people are being incarcerated, they're being, held in these jails, and they shouldn't be. And so these standards were a way to be like, well, we're following our own standards we made for ourselves. Therefore, we are not liable for what is happening in these jails. But according to this report from Investigate West, Idaho is one of 3 states where the sheriffs police themselves using, quote, voluntary jail protocols and inspections. So it sounds like the jails have months of notice that they're going to get an inspection, and then it's retired sheriffs or people associated with the sheriff's department who are doing the investigations themselves. And according to this report, Julia Piazowski from the Idaho Prison Project blog said that we have some of the worst oversight in the nation.
Yeah, that definitely stood out to me as well. Like, this is not just like, oh, this is because we've heard about, horrible conditions in prisons and jails around the country. And so it's kind of like, well, is Idaho that much it's all bad? Or is Idaho really like an outlier in this? And at least in this way, it sounds like Idaho really is kind of out of step with the rest of the country. And I think I'm glad you brought up, especially like in rural counties where, the sheriff, once they retire, then they join the Idaho Sheriff's Association in their retired years. So they're inspecting the people that they were colleagues with potentially, because they're staying in town. They know each other. And I'm not saying that for sure means that there's going to be, it's not going to be impartial in these reports, but I do think that relationship. I mean, that could be challenging, and let alone, like you said, it's not like a food inspector who shows up at a restaurant and is like, all right, I'm inspecting you now. And it's a surprise. You don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to find out how bad the conditions in this kitchen are. They're not showing up randomly saying, okay, today's your inspection day. Here I am. I'm going to see exactly how it is without you getting any advance notice to make anything any better. It sounds scary. It doesn't sound good for folks who might have people who are, in these jails. And also, like, their jails are set up differently than prisons because the idea is they're not there for housing long term. They're not supposed to be, at least. And so even the infrastructure, it sounds like, is it depends on the county. There's not a lot of standards, as we've talked about.
Well, and when we talk about the population that is in these jails, in a lot of cases, they haven't been convicted of anything.
Great point.
So when you're in this jail, you've been arrested,
right?
But there is no conviction. Maybe there's no evidence. Maybe there's nothing. But now you're being kept in this facility where standards are really, really minimal. Maybe it's not passing inspection. And so I just look at that and anybody could be arrested. Like anybody at any time could get arrested for something. And I would hope that somebody would be kept in a facility that at least meets basic standards, basic safety protocols. I mean, they were talking about how there have been people who've been arrested in these and held in these jails who are suicidal.
Right.
And nobody watches them for hours and hours and hours. And that's incredibly dangerous, especially, when we're talking about this population. They haven't been convicted of anything. They haven't they deserve basic standards of care, whether they're having a mental health crisis or not, whether they've done something or not. They're people. And there should be basic standards of care when you are housing a person against their will.
Yeah. And I thought another quote that stood out for me in this piece was the reporter asked former Ada County Sheriff Gary Rainey what he thinks about this and if like stricter standards or if there could be some inspection standards coming from the state anytime soon, since again, this is all like county level, and there's no statewide standards here. And his quote was, "Idaho loves local control. No lawmaker wants to go against the sheriffs and the Sheriff's Association," which absolutely. I mean, certainly can't imagine any Republicans really wanting to do this. And even the Democrats, it could be a challenge to get anything past a powerful group like the Sheriff's Association and the folks who, are really law and order and that idea. But again, these folks they're in jail. They're not in prison. Regardless, everybody deserves like basic standards for beds, having space, toilet facilities, all of that. Like, there were so many things in this report that sounds like it's, again, the standards are all over the place.
Well, and something that was highlighted briefly in the article, but I think needs to be discussed and should be discussed, is that 6 people died in Idaho jails, some of which failed their inspections. And Idaho, number one, doesn't require jails to report deaths to the state, which is wild to me. How is that? How are they not required to report deaths in jail? I don't understand that. But they don't have to have an investigation into what happened either. So in these facilities that have failed these very, very minimal, vague, almost non-existent standards, it's unclear whether the people died because they were kept in these conditions that don't meet minimum requirements. And the deaths weren't even reported. And Idaho state legislators were quoted as saying, it's never come up. Like, this has never been brought to the legislature, like you said.
Yeah.
And they just kind of assumed, like, I guess the sheriffs are just taking care of it themselves. Like, they've got it handled, nothing to see here. And so I think this is very, very concerning.
Yeah. And that's one story about this Lance Quick, who was a firefighter in Idaho Falls, and he was diagnosed with some mental health issues, bipolar and post-traumatic stress. And he died in a jail cell alone. He died of dehydration and starvation. And so his family is just one of, many in Idaho that are seeking answers and want to see these problems addressed directly.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Turns out, a delightfully clean home can make for a delightful start to the day. At Mrs. Meyer's, everything we make is inspired by the garden. With plant-derived and other thoughtfully chosen ingredients, our cleaning products smell like a dream and work like the Dickens, leaving your home sparkly clean and your to-do list tackled in no time. Goodness, there's no better feeling than that. Mrs. Meyer's, rooted in goodness. Visit mrsmeyers.com today.
Frankie, have you seen the update on the Valley Fire that was in the Boise foothills threatening several subdivisions?
Yeah. I mean, so of course, this was sparked on October 4th, which I just need to underline October. In early October, there was a wildfire that was definitely threatening a lot of homes in Boise, which is not something that's usual in wildfire reporting in Idaho. Usually those kind of things stop in September. So anyway, thankfully, of course, all of the agencies involved, acted really quickly. People were smart about, being ready to evacuate or evacuating it when told to. And there were no injuries and no homes burned down. As of right now, it's 90% contained and is still burning a little bit, but not very much, and is about 10,000 acres. But the big news of this week, of course, was that we finally learned what caused it, because it usually takes a few weeks to figure out what actually started a fire. And now we know. Idaho Power. The report came from Idaho Department of Lands this week that a downed cross arm on an Idaho Power pole broke, and that was what likely caused an energized wire to touch on the ground to spark this fire. So this is a big deal. Bad news for Idaho Power, to say the least. Really bad PR. And maybe one of the first, or one of the only times, or perhaps the first actually, time that I can recall in recent history that we know for sure that it was, the power company's fault, essentially. And that is something that I think strikes fear in a lot of people in the West when we're talking about wildfires.
Absolutely. And Idaho Power has said that pole had been inspected 3 times already this year. So
this year, yeah.
Yeah, it had passed inspection. I think something that is interesting, maybe even a little ironic about this situation, is that in July, Idaho Power, there was a big storm blowing in.
Predicted, a predicted
Yes,
big storm.
yes. And there was a lot of, talk about how bad this could be. We already had not great fire conditions. It was supposed to be high winds, a really big storm. And so Idaho Power preemptively turned off power to thousands of people in the Treasure Valley, warning this could cause a fire. If lines go down, it could cause a fire. We're very worried about this. And power is off for some people for greater than 24 or 36 hours. The storm blew in, and at least in Meridian, it was approximately 5 minutes of heavy rain and wind and then nothing. And then people were calling and complaining and saying like, hey, my power's been out for 24 hours for a 5-minute storm an entire day ago. And it was hot. It was hot then. It's not good in the middle of July to have your power turned off.
I was worried when that happened in July, and then it kind of ended up being a nothing burger of a storm, and everyone was so pissed about their power being shut off. It was like 25,000 customers who were affected when they did that preemptive shut off, which on the surface is like, that's a smart move. That's what, a lot of folks in the world of fire would say to do. But yeah, that would kind of be a boy who cried wolf situation, so that the next time that there's a storm rolling in, that Idaho Power hopefully will not be hesitant to do what they think is the right thing if they need to do a preemptive power shutoff. I think the situation is a little different because I don't think on October 4th that there was a storm that was coming in, right? So, but regardless, I think these two events happening in the same fire season, people are mad at Idaho Power, I guess, is one of the big takeaways for sure.
Yeah, they're kind of in a no-win situation. And at least according to all of the news I've seen, it's not clear whether there will be any financial repercussions or, any kind of repercussions for Idaho Power. But now there is a lot of concern in the Foothill area. Like it's burned quite a bit. It is contained, but quite a bit of area was burned. And so now we're getting to rainy season. Now we're getting to the rainy part of fall.
Yeah.
And so now there are additional concerns about flooding and erosion. Okay, Frankie, I am ready to hear your picks of the week. What is your pick of the week this Friday?
Okay, 2 words. Ashton Genty. That's my pick of the week.
Those are like the words of the week for Boise.
Yeah, it truly is. And nationally, at least in the college football world. So, okay, I'll fess up. I don't follow college football very closely at all. I don't really know anything about football. It's not my sport. But I do know that Ashton Genty is the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy this year, which, for people who tell me what football is about, tell me it's a very big deal. So it is a big deal, of course. And he's, incredible running back. I'm not going to try to even talk about the stats and all of that, but I did want to highlight a couple of national stories that came out this week that just really put the shine on Boise State and on Ashton Genty and on Boise in general, and I think are making Boise State fans feel very good about themselves right now. One is from this outlet called The Ringer, and the headline says it all: Ashton Genty will make you fall in love with football again. Which I don't know if you can get much more of a glowing feature title for someone. Yeah. And then ESPN came out with their mid-season predictions, rankings, whatever, for the Heisman and for different things. And there's no question in ESPN's mind that the Heisman is Genty's to lose at this stage. That as long as he stays healthy, he's set to probably take that home at the end of the season. They said, I think the end of the quote in the ESPN piece was, Genty isn't just unstoppable, he's historic. So for a non-football fan, I guess I can recognize that's a big deal.
I was going to say, I also have to qualify this by saying I'm lightly adjacently watching football. I know if the game's on, I like it. I think one of the things that has everyone so excited is Ashton Genty wasn't rated very high when he got on the Boise State team, coming out of high school and stuff. And so then for him to be this runaway success, pun lightly intended. like it's been really exciting and really surprising. And I mean, he wasn't ranked like very, very bad. I don't understand. Somebody told me one time about it and I was like, cool, great. No, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But so that it's just kind of been this surprise where it feels like he kind of came out of nowhere. Beginning of the season, he wasn't, the spotlight wasn't on him. People weren't really watching him with Heisman,
Right.
Heisman
Sure.
on their mind. And so I think it's been really exciting for everyone to just see how incredibly he's doing and how much he's just really blowing everyone out of the water. And it's really exciting
And
as
it's-
like
yeah.
an adjacent Boise State, light Boise State fan to watch.
Yeah, and it's getting people like you and me to watch games, or at least part of them.
Absolutely.
So that says a lot. Yeah, and I think just having any enthusiasm, it's kind of brings. I think the Boise State fans would say that it feels similar to glory days in the Coach Pete era and stuff like that. At least this one player being so good. And yeah, have you ever been to a Boise State game?
No, I've watched them at some sports bars and at friends' house.
You should go. You should go this year. I did it a couple years ago, and it was the only time I've gone, and it was fun. I mean, even again for someone who doesn't really follow, I had a good time. There's the next time to see him potentially play the home game. The next one is on November 1st. So it looks like there's tickets still available. Yep.
Okay, I'll look at that, and then you get to tailgate. And that's always
Exactly.
fun. I have tailgated at the stadium. I just
Okay.
didn't go inside.
Oh, okay. You were part of the scene then. All right.
Yeah.
Well, what's your pick of the week? What are you excited about?
Okay, my pick of the week is Taste of Boise starts today.
Ooh.
And I am very excited about this. Every year it comes around, and I kind of am surprised by it, which I shouldn't be. I don't know why every year I kind of forget it. But there are so many restaurants participating this year. They have some really interesting food selections available. Something that I'm trying to be a budget-friendly girly this year, really trying to watch my budget. And so they have under $14 specials, a bunch of restaurants do. Yeah.
Nice.
And I love to check those out first because you can find some really, really great deals. Like Totally Smashed at the Warehouse is going to be having a burger and soda deal for $14. A whole giant big burger.
Dang.
Soda
that's
for
good.
$14. Yeah. So some great deals. Koa de Ima is going to have a birria taco and a margarita for $14.
What? That's a steal. That really is.
Let's see, Broadcast Coffee, you can get a breakfast sandwich and a barista crafted drink for $14. So there's lots of things, and they have them available at different times of day. Some are more happy hour, some are dinner, some are lunch. And there's restaurants where they're maybe a little more fancy, or like Kin is having deals, and Kin is like an event. You go there sometimes, but I love Taste of Boise. You can try some things that when you're trying to be budget friendly, you can still eat at Kin. They're having a strip steak tartare and drinks available for $14. So
Dang.
it's not going to bust your budget to go try
Yeah.
some Kin. So
Yeah.
I just really love, this is the opportunity that I really like to go try some different things around town, try some restaurants I maybe haven't tried before, or try some things I haven't eaten at those restaurants. And I always love an opportunity to go downtown and eat. So I love Taste of Boise.
Oh, that sounds so good. Yeah. And there's also, I'm looking on their website now, I'm seeing so there's the under $14 specials, which, yeah, what a steal. That's a great idea. And then there's the prefix menus for some of the more fine dining places to play around. But even still, it's like, gosh, I'm saying like a modern 4-course dinner for $70 per person.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're going to, be a little creative with the menu and do farm to table kind of stuff. Of course, they always do, and lots of local food spotlighted within those menus. That looks great. That sounds like a really delicious weekend.
And a lot of places also make different drinks than they normally offer. And so it's kind of a chance to try things you haven't tried before, or things that aren't usually on the menu, just be a little adventurous. I really enjoy it. I think it's great. And it's gotten cooler. It's gotten cozy. I'm ready to eat comfort food. I'm ready for all the food now.
Yeah, you can have some delicious soup from one of these places or something like that, and like a heavier meal, and it'll actually feel good. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Absolutely. Well, I loved your pick of the week. It's a we're making national news for something fun
Correct.
and exciting again. And I love that.
I know.
So yeah, well, have a great weekend.
Yeah, so good to talk with you, Lindsay. Happy weekend.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Natalia Aldana is filling in for Blake Hunter this week, writing our incredible Hey Boise newsletter. Our music is by Up Is the Down Is the, and if you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Monday with another great local story. See you then.